Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Lise. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this CEO business panel. I'm going to introduce now our panelists one by one. I'll first turn to Mark Hauptfinger, CEO of PCCW Global. Would you care to introduce yourself, Mark? I think you're on mute.
That's all right. Sorry about that. Thanks, Daniel. Thank you very much. My name is Mark. I'm the CEO of PCCW Global, which also operates a fabric known as Console Connect. Very eager to contribute to this panel where we see a distributed ledger as a key component of our development going forward.
Thank you, Mark. I'll turn to Susan. Susan, would you like to introduce yourself now?
My name is Susan. I'm a Chief Operating Officer from the QLC Chain. Really glad to be here. QLC Chain may be a new name for you because we emerged for the opportunity, the automated commercial layer. And we're a group of telecom specialists and blockchain engineers. We devoted ourselves to the blockchain applications for the telecom industry and telecom industry only. So I'm going to talk a bit more about our experience helping the transformation to the automated network. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Susan. Over to you, Subita. Subita Morley from CenturyLink.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Subito, and I am the Chief Data Officer at CenturyLink, and I'm responsible for our data enablement initiatives here. One of the key areas we're focusing on is the use of blockchain in terms of creating interchanges with our partners, as well as opportunities to look at new revenue cycles. So very excited to be here and part of this panel.
Thank you, Subito. And last but not least, Michael Kearns from Amartis.
Good afternoon, everybody. Michael Kearns is my name. I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer of Amartis. We're a vendor who is we're providing inter-provider service automation solutions, industry standards based. We're working widely within the MEF, the TM forum, and also aligning with the CBAN work. We've contributed there. And we're looking forward to introducing the DLT capabilities for particular aspects of the life cycle for the inter-provider automation.
Tremendous. Thank you, Michael. So just a note for our viewers, I'm going to be using the term DLT, synonymous for blockchain. And so when I talk about DLT, distributed ledger technology, some of you might think of that as blockchain. That's the way I'm going to go when I'm posing the questions and moderating this panel. So I'm going to start off with a general question for each of the panelists. What, Mark, for you, does DLT mean? It's a lot more than a technology, I assume. It's a business opportunity. So how would you describe the importance or what DLT is?
Thanks, Dan. From a high level, I think that for us, it represents the hallmark of automation and where the world is going. And arguably the COVID-19 pandemic that we're living through is an accelerant to automation. And having a distributed ledger as a common trust value amongst partners in any type of service that's provided, in managing identity and verification across those environments, and most importantly, in assuring settlement for complex use cases, because the world is becoming increasingly complex. So I think automation of complex use cases, efficiencies, and I think also to some extent accelerating where we need to be going in the new age of technology and how it's leading us. So for us, it's automation, efficiency, technology.
I remember, I think it was 5 years ago, when you started explaining in MEF the importance of automating commercial interaction between service providers. Back in 2015, I think it was.
November 2014. Only my mother watched that one on YouTube, but yeah, that's right.
It was already at Gen 14. So, I mean, were you thinking blockchain at the time when you were talking about that automation?
Frankly, no. It was clear to us, but that was where we were starting the research, and I applaud those who had been involved in blockchain earlier. We started to aggressively get involved in blockchain. I think it was quite famously made known through a very very transparent POC that we did together with Colt, which we announced, I think, at the end of 2018, if I'm not mistaken, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. We had done some prep work ahead of that, and that was when we started to get going. And since then, we've been quite aggressive. We have an agile release train inside our company that's focused on delivering DLT or blockchain, whatever you want to call it, through various forms, and we've got different approaches to it as part of our platform economics release train, which is ultimately going to be a functional driver through all of our services and use cases, first at the wholesale level and ultimately at the retail level. We don't know how long that will take, but that's the roadmap that we're clearly on, and the company is well aligned to that today.
Thank you. So Subito, I mean, you're from CenturyLink, probably the go-to person for blockchain there. Can you tell us what DLT means to you and to CenturyLink?
I think we have a lot in common with the way Mark described it. The reality is, creating an opportunity for interoperability and the concept of digital contracts is essential to what we're trying to do. The more you eliminate the handoffs between carriers and partners and create a relationship, a trust relationship, not only between that partner ecosystem, but also with your customers, you enable access and, quite frankly, interactions that are very difficult to do in real time or at scale. And so the opportunity to automate as well as authenticate in the same string of operations really empowers us to do things that we know we want to do, but the reality has become very hard in the cumbersome nature of what was the traditional interchange of data. And so, by freeing the data, by making it more secure, we actually make it more freely available, and we allow ourselves to engage in new and innovative relationships with our partners. So for us, by taking out the aspect of lack of security in the past or the concerns around things like PII or specific information related to operations, we can now focus on the customer and on the relationships that support the customer.
You mentioned digital contracts. Is that separate from smart contracts, synonymous?
I would call them synonymous. It's we all understand the value of understanding terms and relationships created through those contracts, and the opportunities that or the challenges that come up when a human has to interpret those things in order to understand the validity or the implementation.
So, I mean, two very important viewpoints of major service providers as to how they see DLT. We're talking about trust and automation, security. It'll be interesting to hear the perspective of the technology providers on the panel. So, Susan, what's DLT to you? Obviously, it's the mainstay of your business based on the name of your company. But can you tell us how you see DLT?
Well, I think as a startup, and we think the DLT offers enormous opportunity to transform industry from the way it used to be to the way it should be. In terms of, I think the main drive or customer experience, we have same thing happens in e-commerce and social applications and banking. And the telecom industry is one that's going to utilize DLT to unlock a lot of possibilities. I think the key use cases that we're mentioning here, automations, business process, are just some of them. And we saw so many possibilities that not enabled before, but now with the DLT, and it just just interesting, get people excited, and solve the problem and drive the new growth of the industry.
So are you involved in other industries apart from telecom? Is telecom a central part of your market?
We focus on telecom due to the team's backgrounds. We've been formed by former telecommunication engineers and the blockchain specialists. So the telecom industry is the one that we all focus on right now, and we want to concentrate it in this industry as our specialties, and I think the opportunity is enormous. But in this industry alone, and we're talking about multi-billion levels of the market cap could be transactions could be processed by blockchain in the future, maybe in next 5 or 10 years. So that's what we do. That's what we specialize.
Thank you. So Michael, Amartys is a lot more than DLT, but apparently it's an important part of what you're doing today. Can you tell me what DLT means to you and to Amartys?
Okay, that's right. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the overall life cycle for the interprovider and automating across the life cycles, and we think that there is already work underway, and there are already adoption is underway by the providers for the on-demand sort of negotiation of those services. So looking at the qualification, the quoting, and the ordering phase of that. But of course, to complete the life cycle, we need to look at the upfront aspects of that, so contract negotiations, and then we need to look at the follow-on steps such as settlement and billing. And I think that's where the DLT really comes into play, is how to form those partnerships on the front end of this process, how to make it so seamless that they can be formed in real time, through the trust, through the traceability of the ability to drive a process through a DLT type technology using the capabilities there, and on the back end through settlement and billing, and being able to automate that whole settlement and billing process to make the whole life cycle end to end automated. And I think DLT has those characteristics, and we've been working and experimenting and researching that with other companies, and we believe that it has the capabilities for that.
From your experience, you mentioned life cycles, service life cycles. Do you see DLT more relevant in certain parts of the life cycle than others?
I think it does bring more relevance in certain parts, but I think it will be involved in all parts. For example, if you go through the qualification and quoting and ordering, you'll need to record some of the information there in order to drive the settlement. If you're doing the upfront contract negotiation, you need to convert those contracts into smart contracts that can then be used throughout the life cycle to drive the different stages. So I think it can work in combination with the work that we're doing, say, at MEF or the LSO Sonata APIs. And this is a good combination where you've got processes that can be established between parties through APIs, and then using the blockchain for the shared record, for the shared logic based on the contract aspects of that life cycle.
Okay, tremendous, thank you. So I want to ask a general question to the panel. Who typically, in your experience, drives the introduction of DLT into the service provider? Is it top down? Is it bottom up? Is it technology driven? Because it seems like it's about business, it's about trust, as was mentioned earlier, but it's very much about technology as well. So can anyone tell me where you think that story needs to be told in the service providers for it to get accepted and adopted first?
From my perspective, I mean, obviously it changes depending upon what company you're in, but culturally at CenturyLink, it's really driven by an exchange between both our operators and our financial teams. And they've really seen the value of this in terms of operational efficiency. Our key sponsors have actually been mostly in the finance area, where they've come to us and said, we want to be able to drive not only efficiency through the operating side, but also to give ourselves a much clearer view in terms of the financial exchange we have, whether it's on resolution, contractual resolution, or around topics such as taxes. And so we've really had a lot of success from a business side of bringing these forward as business cases, and then together with our technology side and the partners that we've built, a partnership we've built, and then driving the business case forward so that we can put them in place. I will say, Mark described, I think, a very important aspect of that is that as you build the engine that can satisfy and fulfill these things, you enable the business to come up with more ideas and then prioritize them. And I think that's, Mark's been leading this in the industry for a long time on that. So we've tried to learn. How's that?
Thanks for the volleyball lift there on that one. Let me offer the following. One of the sponsors here is CBAN, and the whole notion of CBAN really is to drive the concept of blockchain as a framework through the industry. And I think that in trying to understand where it starts from, which is what your question is, Daniel, you can say ground up or top down, but there also needs to be some sort of framework of thought that everyone can relate to. What were the key drivers then to form CBAN out of the Global Leaders Forum within the past couple of years? First and foremost was the notion that if telcos are going to continue to be infrastructure players, they have to recognize that there's other infrastructures out there, such as clouds and data centers. And if there's going to be an increased layer of interoperability that takes place across different types of asymmetric platforms of infrastructure, it will be necessary to find some way to settle for value, whatever those units of value may be. Quite frankly, the clouds, who started their lives well after the physical networks did, built all of their ecosystems around automated software-based environments. And the digital contracts or smart contracts that Subito mentioned is really key to all of that. They're able to function well because they stay within their own ecosystem. But if we're going to challenge them to say, hey, interoperate, we're going to have to do some heavy lifting and meet them on their ground, which is software development. And I think that all the commercial leadership associated with CBAN and with GLF understood that. And that's why, number one, CBAN is open to any service provider, any ICT service provider. It can be cloud, it can be physical network, it can be a member of GLF, not a member of GLF. And what's the big thing that they did that answers your question that's so important is that they got all the technology players together, like Amartys, like QLC, and others, maybe 10 others, and put everyone together and say, let's build a common framework upon which we can all deliver code to that would make it easy to convince a product manager who wants to get something complex out the door and needs to formulate smart contracts that would go into a distributed ledger environment, or the finance people, the tax people, the legal people, and the leadership of an organization that's looking for automation efficiency. So hopefully all of this mindset is being built. And I think that the decision making has to come from the top down, but it also has to come from the product managers who are eager to do new things out on the street and really drive it and understand that just doing something unilaterally without thinking through all of the food chain complexities that exist today for complex services, it's necessary to really think holistically. And I think that Digital Ledger is giving them that opportunity to do that. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but I think you have to look at it very, very holistically in order to say, where's the decision maker? It can't just be from one area or another, it's got to be from all over.
Windows, thank you. Any thoughts from the other panelists on that question?
Well, I totally agree with Mark and Subito's. I think this is this is very this is a way that's how people meet each other, exchange ideas, and not strictly from top down or bottom up. And we're lucky to have an organization like CBAN or MEF, and people just very open and talk about solutions and share the ideas. So, I mean, we'll constantly propose new ideas, and we try out, we have rounds of meeting, we discuss whether there's a value points that move forward. So I like the environments that are Automosphere that's provided by the carriers that we have been working with.
Very good.
And Daniel, just the last few words for me, just as a company who's kind of working across different providers and looking at the, you've got different stakeholders, you've got the business folks, you've got the product guys, you've got the operations, you've got the IT guys, you've got the financial guys as well involved in this area. I think that a lot of transformation is still driven by individual projects within those organizations. So they look at launching a new service or expanding a service, and maybe it's even going to providing on-demand service from what they had typically as more static. I think that we need to get the DLT in as a kind of a core component, something similar to what you would have for omni-channel type. Omni-channel was introduced for opening up your service offerings in different ways to your customers. I think we also need to look at opening it up to our partners, in a similar way. So establish the DLT and the automation as a fundamental building block, just like an omni-channel or a CRM would be inside of your organization. Then build out per project the types of services that, will really be able to exploit the capability. And, that's instead of going from of course you need top-down buy-in, but that's the major transformation. And this is about building an ecosystem. So you got to be inclusive, and to be inclusive, you need to, it'll only work if we get lots of people into the ecosystem. And to be inclusive, we need something that's pre-packaged or available, ready for them to deploy, something they can consume in a very easy way. So I think this is another type of strategy that we can take with the DLT and blockchain. And ultimately, we all want the automated supply chain in this area.
So Sabita brought up a very interesting point about the financial groups and the operators sort of finding a strong value internally, it sounds like, within the organization. And Mark highlighted the importance of the initiatives like CBAN that are about federating, interconnecting different entities and using DLT in that context. Do you have a feeling as to whether DLT is going to really take off for internal needs within a large, complex organization, or whether it's going to take off first in that external interface with other entities, which today are hampered very much by a sort of a manual-based trust model that DLT can free the animal, so to speak?
I can go first. In what I'm seeing, and I can only speak for what we're seeing in my space, it's been largely enabled by an understanding that we need to have better exchange between our partners in the ecosystem. Internally, we have the trust. So the reality is data flows much more freely inside of the four walls of a CenturyLink. As Mark described, well, the cloud service providers, enabled their business by building infrastructure as a service and freeing up their consumption of what their services are through code and through very automated exchanges. They have more and more dependency or interest in conserving services like CenturyLinks. And as we create these new opportunities, we need to create a faster path to both consumption as well as the financial aspects of billing and reconciliation. And the reality is also, as what Michael described, is by creating a portfolio of goods or portfolio of interchanges and understanding how each of our businesses and our partners' businesses evolve, we create that transparency that will allow us to not only buy and consume from each other faster, but I think it also spurs innovation. And so DLT has a lot of power inside and outside, but I'm seeing that the biggest driver is the need to interchange or engage with a partner